But then as time went on, it was more a decision for me. I don't want to go the one way. I only want to go the other way. So does it hurt me? I don't know. Maybe. But I'm happy with it.
Can I chime in for a second?
Go right ahead, Dennis.
Well, I think that, the wording, in my opinion, or as far as how we label the way one person trains over another, when I look at just like health, I prefer to use positive reinforcement. That's the thing that I've ever done. But I think the wording can really put people off when somebody says that they're using force-free. I think that's when things get a little muddled, because if you have a dog, someplace in that dog's life, you're forcing them to do something. We have 6 dogs, so we're forcing them to live in a fairly small environment together, which if they had their choice, would they want to be someplace else? Or we're forcing them to do it. We're not, putting them in a room together, but, right now they don't have a choice where they live. So we are kind of putting that force on them. They eat the food that we provide. So we're kind of forcing them to eat the food that they have. So when I hear that word force-free, it's just like, I think that's where a lot of the division comes from, because you have people that on one side are going to go, no, there is no such thing as force-free. Mm-hmm. Then you have the person on the side that does use force or shock or prone or whatever. And I don't know, I think that's where I've heard a lot of arguments by there is no such thing as a purely positive trainer. And I think that you can have a lot of gray areas there when you say that you are completely using no force to train an animal. It's impossible. You can't do it. We don't live in that kind of a world of daisies and roses, where we're not forcing animals to be someplace where they may not want to be. That's just my take on it. I think it's the wording that can cause the arguments.
Interesting. I kind of agree with that, because a lot of times I might use the word positive because people recognize that, reward-based and so forth. I also will use the word gentle, but then, everyone's example of gentle could be different. I might be very, very gentle like this, someone else might be like, this is gentle to me, so it's how you interpret it, I guess. The thing I'd be curious to find out is, the reason why there's positive reinforcement these days, or gentle methods, whatever you want to call it, over the last 15 years or so, I guess because science has proven that it's more effective than going the old traditional way. But I haven't really seen anything. I mean, there hasn't been anything I've seen where it's really shown that, where the only thing I can see where a traditional method would go, I'm positive, I'm gentle and all that kind of route. Where it's an extreme case where you have to have, where the dog's be put down or whatever, someone can be evicted. And maybe gentle methods would work, but it's going to take too long to get there. So you have to get some kind of result quicker, maybe, or or it's a situation where it's an aggression case, then maybe you might have to go that route and be as gentle, if you will, as possible in proceeding down that route. Even though I haven't done that and I don't have that much experience doing that, I could possibly see it in those realms.
I think, you're right about the phraseology, the terminology. And it's true that there's no such thing as completely force-free. There's no such thing as completely positive. You can't operate in one quadrant. You can't, but yeah, obviously the dog has no choice. You pick up a dog, you bring him home. That dog has no choice in the matter. That dog is being forced to live with you. You feed them a certain food. The dog has no choice in the matter. They are being forced to eat that food. Yes, that is true. But in training, using force-free, and I actually explain this to people sometimes, is that when I'm teaching something to a dog, I don't need to use force. And I think the whole evolution of the term force-free came about because I think there were to distinguish trainers who lean heavily on positive reinforcement and rewards-based methods from trainers who say, oh, I'm a positive reinforcement trainer, and then they'll turn around and do a leash pop. You know, they'll call themselves a positive reinforcement trainer. Yes, I use treats. Sit, pop. You know, and then if the dog, oh, here's your treat. So, so I think that phrase came about to try and distinguish trainers that are don't use any kind of leash pop, any kind of choke chain, those kinds of things, from other trainers who do use those methods but call themselves positive reinforcement. So I know the phraseology, the terminology is very divisive, but then again, people are divisive. That's everything is good, evil, force-free, shock collar.
Yeah, these words get thrown around, these buzzwords, you know, dominance and alpha, and a lot of these things have been disproven, like dominance and things. It depends on the context, and so it's to try to decipher all this and try to make sense of it to the client so they understand can be somewhat of a challenge because it's so out there, you know.
But the science, could it be my for a second?
Steve.
The science, so we can go back to 1979 or something like that. Veterinary Clinics of North America. These books sit on most veterinarian shelves. I think it was November 79 that book was devoted to animal behavior. The major contributors when it came to dogs and cats were Peter Borchelt and Victoria Voith. They were a team. And they put together a whole bunch of studies and they actually have terminology for the categories of aggression, right? So there's the, you know, dominance and territorial and possessive and maternal and redirected, and there's the big list. There didn't seem to be a problem with using that word then. It was defined, and John Rogerson, I love the guy, you know, he manufactured that amazing tape on the dominant dog. You know, it wasn't the Cesar Millan thing, you know, but the terminology was the terminology. Now suddenly it's become like a bad word, like cursing to use a dominant word. Well, guess what? You know, how come it wasn't a word when it came out of the mouth of a PhD and a veterinary behaviorist first, not Cesar Millan. And we could just make believe that these educated people never said that, but that wouldn't be a good idea, you know, because then we're just throwing, you know, this to the wind. So there is science all the way around. And while I agree with everybody, you know, I prefer to teach a dog. I think it's important to teach a dog via positive reinforcement. Okay. Trained dog understands what you're asking and fails to comply, right? Do you say, oh, my fault for not using enough motivation? Or maybe the dog needs a little tune-up for just like blowing me off. You know, that now we have, you know, because there's criteria. No-kill shelters euthanize oftentimes aggressive dogs, but they still are on the no-kill shelter list. But that doesn't mean he dies, right? That means that adoptable dogs will not be euthanized, not no dogs will be euthanized. But it sort of falls that way where people are led to believe if you adopt from a no-kill shelter, nothing gets killed. That's ridiculous.
You're saying it's very true. I volunteered at no-kill shelter. That they behind the scenes don't supposed to say anything, but they do. But they do try to rehab those dogs that have potential where they have to euthanize them. They try to prevent that. And in worst case scenario, that'll be a last resort.
Right, but it's, you know, there's still no-kill shelter, still, right? But, you know, because there's a criteria for what's adoptable and all that. In dog training, there's, well, you know, I think everybody's got their feelings. I feel like a smart person uses positivity to teach the behavior. And if you honestly have done the job and you've trained the dog well and you've took your time and used patience and, you know, all that motivation and it's worked out well, the day will come when you give a cue and it doesn't come around. And what do you do then? I think that's another question. I don't know.
So I'd like to move on to the next question, but I'd like to give everybody the last opportunity to say anything if they want to say anything else about this. And if not, we can move on to the next question. So does anybody have anything else that they want to add to this discussion?
Maybe one thing,
Please.
kind of short and sweet. I know all of you probably have heard of Dr. and brilliant,
We didn't hear the name.
brilliant animal behavior.
Dennis, we didn't hear the name.
Susan Friedman.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure we've all heard of her. And so I remember at a seminar once she was talking about her very young daughter. And this was, quite a few years ago when her daughter was really young. And Susan had been, doing something, and she had come home. She had kind of a bad day. And this daughter had never been told no. Her daughter had never really felt any kind of punishment in her entire life. So Susan gets home, and her daughter had pulled a bunch of toilet paper all over the bathroom. And it looked like a Halloween decoration. So Susan kind of went off on her a little bit, and this kid had a complete meltdown. So I think the moral that everybody at the seminar took from this thing is that if we don't prepare our dogs for what is real in life, if we don't add them with a little bit of, hey, this is reality, then the first time that they're ever faced with something real in their lives, they're going to have a meltdown. And I see that with a lot of dogs that I work with. They've just never been pet, and they've never had anything bad happen to them. All of a sudden, one thing happens, and now the dogs are on Prozac, they're on Clomicalm, they're on Xanax, they're on every drug known to man, and these dogs just can't cope. So that's just something I wanted to throw in.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay. So let's move on to the present. And in thinking about the present, I was trying to think of a topic that was current, that was going on now. And of course, what came to mind was the licensing of dog trainers. And the question that I'm going to throw out is very simple. It's multi-part, but it is simple. It's, are you not in favor of licensing trainers? Are you in favor of licensing trainers? And if you are, what criteria would you like to see put in place or change from what is currently there? And I'll throw it open.
So when you say licensing, what do you mean?
There is in New York State, there is a big controversy. I forgot. I apologize. It is only New York State. I don't believe it's nationwide, but there is a current controversy in New York State that they want to institute a license for dog training that will be a certain educational process and certain certification. No, I'm wrong about that, Helen. I'm sorry. I don't, please go right ahead.
It's yes, they are. There was a push. I think it's kind of dead in the water right now, but there was a push for licensing dog trainers, and I was against it. I'm still against it because first of all, the way it's being done. I mean, it's just alleged. It was a politician. 4 points on the back of, an animal abuse case.
Yes.
Oh, we have to, guarantee that our people who bring their loving pets that they love so much are being safely handled. And so we're going to issue licensing. And they're writing the legislation without input from anyone, from a single dog trainer. The initial draft of the legislation bill was horrible. It was horrible. It was more apt for groomers and boarders, kennels. And I just think, it's just another money grab for the state, is how I see it. I'm for licensing, and the requirement, there was no educational requirement whatsoever. Okay. None whatsoever. I am for licensing in theory, but in practice, what they put out there was garbage. in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree 100% with Helen because, how do you regulate morality? I mean, we give people driving licenses and then we have people driving through crowds of people killing people. So you can't legislate morality. I think, I know Ian Dunbar, I think the last time that I saw him, he was talking about at least 300-hour shelter externship. You would train like 10, 15 dogs a day over the course of 3 years in order to get some kind of certification. I think a lot of the certifications that are out there now are too easily gotten. I don't think there's enough real training. I mean, we're literally putting the lives of our dogs into very inexperienced people's hands. I think there should be some kind of a criteria that should be met, not just the CPDT or whatever. There should be something that shows that you have at least some kind of capability to be able to serve these dogs in the way that they deserve to be. But licensing said you can hand anybody a driver's license, not going to keep them from going out and drinking a 6-pack of beer and killing somebody.
Good point.
Steve, I know you have an opinion on this.
Well, it's a tough one. I mean, there's not that. Stephen McKenzie teaches up in Cobleskill, and there's not too many of him. I mean, he actually teaches a course in canine behavior. I mean, he's sort of the real article, but there's not too many McKenzies, and there's not that many programs. And so, if you go to school, I mean, I was brought up by some of those guys in the 70s. But those schools were not. There was only an element. When you get Lauren around, she'll tell you. And there was always an element of real dog training, but mostly it was business. Back in those days, every canine place I ever worked in, I was happy to be around a bunch of trainers who had skills, but it was really mostly about making money. They just train dogs and sell them for an awful lot of money. I mean, just take them in, train them. I mean, it was the old days, but the education came from like Colonel Conrad Most's book, Training Dogs, a manual. That was like the Bible, and then it was the Keeler book, and I mean, read this book, here's a leash, here's a collar, train the dog. I mean, that's how it was. But there's no real education. There's a lot more information. I mean, if now everybody's talking, Skinnerian dog training and stuff. It was Colonel Conrad Most and a collar and a leash.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, and not that he didn't have like thoughts, and that if there wasn't a real method, I would probably the first method. But it's hard to get that together. To get a license, I mean, I have a license in veterinary technology. It irks me now that I know that there are people out there that are doing things in animal hospitals that are not licensed. I sort of don't like that because there's no uniformity in their education. Maybe their boss taught them how to behave. Maybe their boss is a good veterinarian. Furthermore, maybe he was even a good teacher. And maybe you became a good technician because you had a good education with this guy. But you can't go from animal hospital to animal hospital and assume that every veterinarian is a good veterinarian and furthermore a good teacher and that their technicians are worth a grain of salt. You go to school, there's a uniform education. The AVMA lays it out. This is what you have to know. This is what you have to be able to do. And this is how you get your credentials. In order for dog trainers, it would have to be a similar thing. It would have to be laid out. This is what you need to know. This is what you have to do. And I don't know who's doing that. I don't think anybody at this point is up to that. But I agree with Helen. The state's looking for money. And so they'll license whatever they can, and they still won't watch. You think that the New York State Education Department is sending out inspectors to the animal hospitals to see if there are any technicians in there? They don't. There's nobody. There's a handful of people who go around and investigate these things, and they have to investigate MDs and RNs and PAs and just the whole gamut. Dentists. There's one group that You think they're going to really get around to the vet techs? They're not coming around and checking. They will tell you, if we find an unlicensed vet tech in your hospital doing technician's work, you'll be fined $10,000. I think I know one guy in the last 25 years that got popped for that. Otherwise, there's a lot of bad stuff going on everywhere. So even if you force the education and you take the money, it doesn't mean that these things will actually be enforced or reinforced. So that's how I feel about it, Joel.
David, do you have anything to add?
I would agree with what everyone is saying. I mean, it's then it comes down to too is, you know, what kind of this dog training is this such a broad profession? You know, are you teaching a dog for behavior modification? Is it depression treatment? You know, so it depends on what kind of experience you have. So is there going to be a different license depending upon the education you have or the experience you have? You know, you can't have one for all. I don't think it's difficult to do that. And I could be mistaken. I could have sworn in one of my local pet stores in Bayside in Queens, I saw a dog trainer that said something about being certified in New York or something. Must not be the same exact thing. I don't know. Like I'm looking here as you were talking, Steve. I was looking at the thing here, Dog Trainer School of New York. Become a dog trainer in New York and New York City. It's called Catch Canine, I guess. Trainers Academy. It's a state licensed dog trainer school. But I don't know.
Wait, what was that name again?
Yeah, I know.
Catch Canine Trainers Academy. It is a state licensed dog training school with many levels of certification to choose from and so forth. And then it says it goes across the United States with professional mentor trainers in every state.
Well, you have a business license.
I looked it up. I was just curious. I could have sworn I saw something that could, you know, come about.
Yeah, he does say he's a licensed school. I know him.
Who?
David Muriello. And I don't know, I have a bad taste in my mouth with him because he used to be the head of training at Biscuits and Bath doggy daycare in New York City, and they were horrible. I mean, I heard stories from people that worked there about the treatment of dogs there. So, you know, that's just my feeling about that, just from some personal history of hearing that. But he does say that he's licensed by New York State, but it's online. Again,
although I can't remember the school I went to, which Anthony Jerome School of Dog Training, is something to that effect as
Anthony
well.
Jerome, yeah.
I don't know if it's New York State, but definitely New York City for sure.
Well, I wonder if they're talking about having a business license because we have a license. So we're licensed by the state, but not as, you know, not for dog training. We have a business license. So it's the wording that they could be putting out there. We have a business license. So yeah, you can say you're licensed by the state, and that could mean, oh, you have a license to be a dog trainer. No, they don't. They have a business license.
Right.
It's
And
the
also, I think Anthony Jerome, I think his school meets the criteria for like secondary or vocational training. So he has an educational license. Right. But beyond that, you know, I mean, there's no
uniform.
Yeah.
Right, and just like everyone's saying, all you have to do is just pay X amount of money for a license to run the school, basically.
So let me ask this.
Got on his sign a letter saying.
Can I just interrupt real quick? Joyce Keaton has joined us again. I don't know where she went. I saw that she was there, but
eating dinner.
I guess she was private. And Jeff Coltonback.
I'm so sorry. I had the meeting scheduled for 8:30.
Oh Lord.
So I apologize. I'm late, but I'm on time on my end.
Okay.
Okay. Oh boy.
So let me ask this. Am I correct in that everybody here would like to see some sort of licensing at some point? Not necessarily from the state, but that they would like to see some sort of a dog trainer's license. I'm not sure if I'm correct or not, because I'm trying to actually figure out.
I'm muting
Who's
Joyce.
that?
A dog.
A dog panting, I think, from Joyce.
That's Lucy.
Okay.
She does that nonstop.
Or is nobody in favor of it? Or
I'm
some?
in favor of it.
You're in favor of it? Jeff, are
Absolutely.
you in favor of that?
Yeah.
Is
The
it
time
too,
hasn't come yet.
Okay.
We're not there yet. But, it wouldn't be a bad thing, but we're nowhere near there.
Okay.
is it too late for me to interject? I kind of
No,
hear
not
what's
at all.
going on.
Please go right ahead.
So I know you're talking about licensing. My question, and maybe you guys have already discussed this, so I apologize if it's redundant. Who oversees or polices this?
That's what we already did discuss.
Okay.
But the question was just more general right now, which is, are you in favor of it at all?
Well, I never say never, I'm all for having consistency or some kind of, I guess, supervision, if you will, for if that's what people feel like the need is. But like any other, for lack of a better word, legislation, is everyone going to follow it? And then you have to say, well, what are the requirements for licensing? Is it certification? And if it's certification, by whom? Who are the authorized certifying bodies that would qualify someone to be licensed per se? As opposed to having a business license, which I just heard you guys talking about. You can have your own business, have your get a license, get your business insurance, and you're a business. Those were just some thoughts that came to mind.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think, too, the other thing to add to that would be, some kind of uniform thing. I think, especially like what you said, Steve, we're not there yet, because you got both sides of the fence. You got the positives and you got the negatives, or whatever you want to call them, the old traditional way.
Yeah.
Two opposite sides of the fence, and how do you come up with a happy medium? Maybe you can't to come up with a uniform thing.
So once again, I'm going to let anybody have another word on this if anybody wants to. If not, we'll move on to the next question.
How much more time do we have?
I was going to do this another 10 to 12 minutes. I was going to do it till 8:40.
Well,
Okay.
is that okay with everybody? Because I know we had said in the invitation 7.
That it was till 8:30, but we did start 10 minutes late. If everybody's okay with that.
I've got a puppy class starting in a little bit, so I just wanted to make sure that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Whoa, it's kind of late for puppy class.
Not in Oregon. We start at 6 o'clock.
So, okay, with that, then let's move on to the last part, which is the future. And I'm going to make this very simple. And that is, what is the future of dog training? And you can look at that one of two ways. You can either look at that as, what do you want to see change? Or how would you want to see dog training in the next 10 years? What would you want to see change to make this profession better?
Honestly, I think what you and Bonnie are doing is the future of dog training. You're giving us a medium to speak, and so we can get our opinions out there instead of I think a lot of us are kind of closed in these little rooms where we train our dogs, and so I think getting us out there more and talking to each other needs to be the future of dog training. So we're not so closed up in these small little groups. And I remember this in Jean Donaldson's brilliant book, The Culture Clash. She says we should be filling stadiums with this information instead of little small groups, one at a time. So I think this is part of the future of it. The technology is definitely the future of dog training.
Interesting.
The other thing I was thinking of, getting to that point to a certain extent, maybe going a little adding to that, would be is having something like we're doing now, but throwing in some behaviorists on there so they get our point of view. Because one thing, they train and they do all the science and they do all the experiments to see what's working, what's not working. But then they say, all right, this is what you got to do, and us dog trainers go and do it. But they may not get that feedback of what's going on. They do it in X amount of students or X amount of dogs they work with, but they're not doing it collectively in, like this, where where all the dog trainers around the country, they're not maybe getting all that feedback maybe.
Could, David, could you just explain that again in a nutshell? Because I didn't follow that.
Oh,
Go
we're
plug my phone in. It's
having something
Hi.
more similar to this possibly.
Are
But
you,
maybe
are,
incorporate some behaviorists in the discussion, for instance. And
Okay.
one thing for them to be putting all this research together by doing studies and so forth, and doing some things amongst dogs and different clients and whatnot. And then based on those studies, they're basically saying what works, what doesn't work, and that kind of thing. And then based on that, they're feeding us that, and then we go out and practice and put it into the real world. They may not be getting the feedback as to what's happening. They have it just on a small scale, whereas us, we're on a larger scale.
mhm.
Most likely, especially the animal behaviors, which there's only 60 of them in the country. The animal veterinary behaviors. So, just a thought.
Okay.
It's a good thought. And, I guess that's one of the sticking points, right? That a lot of dog trainers will see cases for behavior, but the veterinary behaviorist or the doctorate level behaviorist feels that those are their cases, that we shouldn't see those cases. If we don't have that level of education, it's not ours anymore. And then there's guys like Gary Wilkes, who was a clicker guy, right? A national, international clicker guy, who's now rolled up the towel and is bonking dogs, right? He's like whopping them in the head now. And he knows every bit of the science very well, very well. He's a bright guy. He knows the science, but these days he's got a rolled up towel under his arm, and when the dog jumps, he bonks him. So the thing is that Gary Wilkes says things like, when the behaviorists became interested in dog training,
It's on the webinar still.
they should have come to the dog trainers and asked some questions. Instead, the dog trainers flocked around the behaviorists. They're so needy for some kind of credentials that they said, let me hang with these folks because they're smart and they've got all these initials, and I want to be like them. And I want to say that, I'm right there with the science and those guys, because everybody else is going to get left behind. So I think that's an excellent idea that David has. It's like, incorporate some of these people in here, because a lot of them, some of them are just afraid. They're afraid. It's an interesting thing to watch some of them work, because they're a bit afraid. They don't have any hands. They just have knowledge. They have no skills necessarily. And it's the dog trainers that have the skills, but yet the behaviorists don't want to talk to the dog trainers because we don't have that level of education. So to get it, they sort of really are the ones who jumbled this thing up, I think, in the first place. Right? The people who came in and said, I'm smarter than you, and I train smarter than you, and you should pay attention to me. And I know people, honest to God, I don't know if they graduated 5th grade, but when it comes to training dogs, they've got the gift. It's like an art form. They're not that bright. They may not be able to write their name on a paper. They may not speak this language even. They come from wherever they come from. You put a leash in their hand and it's magic. So, there's a little of this. I'm with you, David. I think that it's important to pull that piece in. I think that's a big deal.
Yeah, I guess they would just have to, some of them, not all of them, some of them just have to, so to speak, check their ego at the door if they were to talk to us and not talk down to us or be like, hey, I know what I'm talking about. You listen to what I'm saying, and, I don't want, any of your opinions don't matter, kind of thing. For instance, I have corresponded twice with one of the behaviorists, Stephanie Bourne-Weil, over at Tufts Cummings School of Veterinary Medicine. And she seemed very nice. I was asking her about a separation case, and she responded to me. So I think there are some people, some veterinary behaviorists out there that are willing to,
Yes.
discuss things like this.
Yeah. Yes, there are some that are willing to work. I was working with a dog that they had taken to a vet behaviorist, and well, she had recommended a different trainer. But she didn't know about me, but they had said they had already found me, and she actually was emailing the same report she was emailing the client when meeting with them, and she's been good to work with. So because she doesn't want to get hands dirty. She doesn't want to do the work. She wants to be the knowledge, but she doesn't want to do the work. So she's recommending trainers because she's like, yeah, I'm not going to go out and train with you. I'm not going to go out and work on counter condition. Here's a piece of paper that tells you how to do it. Go find somebody to walk you through the process. That's basically what she did. So, so you're right. Like no skills there, just all the knowledge. But that's kind of a shame for the clients. I don't think that's a good idea either. I mean, these people spent thousands of dollars with this vet behaviorist, and the only advantage that they got over what I gave them was she was able to prescribe drugs. I mean, her report that she wrote up almost verbatim what I had given them, what I had told them about the dog.
Wow.
I mean, and except my report was longer because I went into a little more detail and explained a little more. And she was just like, oh, counter conditioning, find a trainer, and I was like, okay, this is how we're going to work on counter conditioning. So, so this poor client is letting out money for the vet behaviorist, letting out money for me. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's vet behavior. I think you're right, Steve. Everyone flocked around the vet behaviorists, but a lot of them, they don't want to get their hands dirty. They don't want to go do the work. They want to be the intellectual, go-to, I think. So, but that does create, I don't think that's good for the industry overall. I don't think it's good for clients because they're just shelling out left and right. And all they want is, I mean, I hear it all the time. I just want the damn dog fixed. Like, but still.
What about the vets that aren't behaviorists that prescribe psychotropic medication? So by the time you get the case, the dog's already medicated by some veterinarian who doesn't know like a lick about behavior, right? But they still but maybe that's the future, unfortunately, Joel. It's passes at Petco and prescriptions from your DVM. I mean, sadly, it may be going. People.
Well, we're working with our local veterinarians on that. We're doing lunch and learn sessions with our veterinarians to talk to them about behavior and how we can assist them in making better choices for their clients and become their point of referral.
Wow.
And they're very receptive.
It's good.
So I would hit all the local vets as you can and just tell them what you do and how you can help, because everybody's going to their vet for behavior advice first. They don't come to me. They go to the vet first. Right. And the vet says, go to this person or go to that person, or they give them bad advice in the first place. And so if we can get in there and have these lunch and learn sessions where we talk about behavior and what I teach is choice and games and fun and positive reinforcement and how that benefits their dogs and their clients, they can then decide whether they want to refer to my team and I, and then we can talk about drugs, and they can prescribe those drugs necessary for my clients, and it's working out really well.
Wow.
So Joyce, how do you deal with this thing? I need to get your puppy socialized before 12 weeks of age. We can't even get through that, Joyce. We can't even get.
We're talking to them about it.
Oh my God. I mean, it's another one of those 30-year battles, It's like, come on. Where are the sick dogs? They're at your office, for God's sake. They're not in the street. I mean,
we have conversations with them, and they, some of them are receptive and others aren't, but most of them are saying, okay, well, we get it and we want to help. So if you can tell us why your facility is a safe place for us to send our clients versus, telling them to stay home, and we talk about our sanitary procedures and how we're cleaning and how we handle the dogs, the puppies at those young ages. And we're getting buy-in from some of the vets. Others are still very strict. No, it's always all about the health of the dog, and we haven't been able to get through, but we're getting through to some of them.
Yeah. It's a real tough one.
Yeah.
So we've reached an hour. And if it's okay with everybody, I'd like to just give everybody a last opportunity to say whatever they want to say about the topic, which is the state of dog training today. And if anybody has anything that they want to add to anything that we've been discussing, or bring up something new, this would be the time.
I'll go first, and I'll be quick since I got on the call late. First of all, I do apologize that I got here late, and I'll be extremely brief. But and I don't know what the whole call entailed, so I'll just summarize what popped into my head. And you know, the state of dog training and the future of dog training. I would like for all of us to get back to why we became dog trainers in the first place. I would like for us to forget about likes, to forget about shares and how many people viewed our videos, and who's bashing who, and, you know, being blessed, you know, meeting Bonnie and Joel many years ago and doing these roundtables for trainers to come together, as opposed to in constant conflict with all different sides of the spectrum. And I'll shut up.
Ditto.
Okay.
Me too.
Anybody else?
It would be,
Agree what he said. So.
it would be nice to see. Oh, am I muted? No. It would be nice to see the industry come together. I guess we can always have pause course for that, but I don't see it happening, at least not before I retire. I think I'd like to see the future of dog training go a little more towards doing like something like this. I'd love to be able to run a group class from, you stay home, you sign on to something like this. I instruct, I watch everyone, you know, literally, you know, online, have an e-class. I could have a dog training, you know, e-class kind of thing. But also for people who, you know, want to train their dogs themselves. But I think we need to open ourselves up more to maybe not board and train, but something similar to that, where we come in, we train the dog, we work on the dog, we install the behaviors, and then we transfer it on back to the owner or the human. I think of it as if I call someone to do something for me, paint my house, or, you know, fix my washing machine, I don't expect this person to come in and say, okay, I'm going to teach you how to paint your house. I'm going to teach you how to fix your washing machine. No, dude, I called you to do it, and I'll pay you to do it. So, you know, of course, there's a price tag attached to all this. But yeah, I think I'd like to, and something I'm exploring now is looking into possibly, you know, a day training thing where I'll take your dog, I train your dog, and then I transfer the behaviors to you. Not board train though, because I can't do that. But, you know, come to your house every day, drop your dog off for the day, kind of thing. More than, all right, here I come, I'm going to show you how to do it. Now, if there are people who do want to teach the dog themselves and they just need some guidance, fine, then that's what we've been doing all along. I can keep doing that for sure, but I don't know. I just feel like, you know, it's a service, and it's not really a service for some people if you know, okay, I'm going to show you how to do it. And obviously they're not going to get it done as well as you could.
So everyone, I'm sorry, I've got to leave. I've got puppies showing up, so I'm going to screw puppies up.
Have fun.
Nice to meet you guys.
Dennis, thank you.
Thank you, Dennis.
Oh, and
I just
thank you, Bonnie. Thank you, Bonnie and Joel, for doing this. It's been great. Great meeting you guys.
Thanks so much, Dennis.
Take care.
You too.
Bye.
Thank you. You
So
know, I'm sorry that I'm interrupting, because everybody's got to say their last piece with Joel, but I'm hoping that this group can kind of be like maybe an advisory board in some way in the future. I didn't know I had that in mind when I picked you guys, but then the thought came to me at some point after I sent the invitation. So just keep that in the back of your head. I don't have anything to propose right now, but you know, you guys are, we invited DTC's friends, you know, and that's where it's at. So that's what I have to say, my last piece.
So
State of dog training, final comments. David,
the hour is getting late. So unless anybody else has anything else they want to add, I think this is probably a good place to stop.
Well, they didn't, but the other people didn't say about the state of dog training. I mean, they didn't get a chance to answer your question.
That's fine. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Unless anybody else wants to,
Yeah.
to
add anything.
I think I'm good, Joel. I mean,
Okay. I think
appreciate
everybody
the opportunity
that's
to
where we're-
flap my lips this much.
Thank you, Scott.
So I really want to thank everybody. I think that this was very informative, and I think it was a very interesting session. And thank you for participating.
Thank you.
I like
Thank
this
you for
format.
inviting us.
Yeah, great format.
Great. Thank you. Thank you.
Nice to be able to see everybody.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Unfortunately, you got to look at yourself too. I don't like that.
You can turn off your camera, or turn around your camera. I don't know, something.
Yeah, but then
There you go. That doesn't work.
What do you do?
And look out in your email for the Starbucks for a token for me and Joel for your Starbucks gift. It's gonna come via email.
Thank you,
Thank
Bonnie.
you so much. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Good night,
You guys have a
everybody.
great night.
Bye.
Oh,
All
look
right,
at
take care.
Bye.
Hey, everybody.
Bye.
Have a
See
good
ya.
night, everyone. Thanks.
Bye. Thank you.